The lasagna was getting cold. Again. 6:45 p.m. And still no sign of Mom. No call. No text. Nothing. This wasn't like her. Every Sunday for the past 15 years, rain or shine, Mom had shown up at my house at exactly 6 p.m. Even when she had the flu last winter, she dragged herself over, wearing a mask and clutching her signature garlic bread. Family traditions matter, Olivia, she'd always say. But today, her usual spot at my dining table sat empty. I called her cell for the 10th time, straight to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Margaret Sullivan. Please leave a message. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my gut. I'm going to check on her, I told my husband, Michael, already grabbing my keys. Want me to come? I shook my head. Stay with Katie. She's got that science project due tomorrow. Our 13-year-old daughter barely looked up from her volcano model, too focused on getting the papier-mâché just right. The drive to Mom's house took 12 minutes. Each minute amplified my unease. The last time I'd spoken to her was Friday evening. She'd sounded different, distracted. When I'd asked what was wrong, she'd brushed it off, saying she was just tired from cataloging old files at the courthouse where she worked as an archivist. Mom's house was dark when I pulled up. Her blue Volvo sat in the driveway, exactly where it had been when I dropped by 2 days ago, but something felt off. The porch light was out. Mom always kept it on after sunset, and her favorite garden gnome was knocked over. I used my spare key to let myself in. Mom, it's Olivia. Silence. The house smelled wrong. Mom's home always carried the scent of lavender and fresh laundry. But now there was something else, something metallic. My hand found the light switch. Nothing happened. Power out. I used my phone's flashlight to navigate the familiar space. Everything looked normal in the living room. Mom's reading glasses lay on her crossword puzzle, the pen marking her progress. The kitchen was tidy, dishes drying in the rack. Then I saw the basement door. It was closed, but light flickered around its edges. Mom hated the basement. She never went down there except to do laundry. And even then, she always left the door open. As I watched, the light flickered in a pattern. 3 short flashes. 3 long. 3 short. SOS. My heart nearly stopped. Because there, leading to the basement steps, were muddy footprints, too large to be Mom's. I should have called the police. Should have run. Should have done anything except what I did next. But this was Mom. I eased the basement door open, wincing at its creak. The stairs descended into darkness, broken only by that rhythmic flickering from below. The footprints continued down. Mom? I whispered. Something scraped against concrete. Then, barely audible. Olive. Don't. Mom's voice, but strange. Strained. I took the first step down, then another. The flickering grew stronger. It was coming from Mom's old desk lamp, the one she'd kept from her college days, but it wasn't plugged in. Battery powered? When had she changed it? The basement came into view. Filing cabinets lined one wall. New ones, not the rusty metal ones I remembered. A laptop sat open on a folding table, its screen dark. And there was Mom, tied to a chair, blood trickling from her temple. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. Run! She tried to shout through her gag. Too late. A hand clamped over my mouth from behind, another pinning my arms. I tried to scream, to fight, but whoever held me was too strong. Right on time, Miss Sullivan, a woman stepped out of the shadows, tall, elegant, steel gray hair, and colder eyes. Your mother said you come looking. She nodded to someone behind me. I was shoved roughly into another chair, zip ties securing my wrists and ankles. I apologize for ruining your family dinner, the woman continued, but your mother has something that belongs to us. Something she found in the courthouse archives. We've been quite patient, but she gestured at Mom's bruised face. Well, Margaret here is being rather stubborn. Mom was shaking her head frantically. Perhaps, the woman smiled, she'll be more cooperative now that you're here. She pulled out a knife, letting it catch the flickering light. Shall we begin? The laptop suddenly chimed. An incoming email. The woman turned to check it, frowning at whatever she saw. That's when I noticed something about Mom's desk lamp. The flickering pattern had changed. 4 short flashes. Pause. 2 long. Pause. 3 short. Not SOS. Numbers. Mom's eyes locked with mine, willing me to understand. The numbers meant something. Something about the archives? About whatever these people wanted. The woman turned back. It seems we have a complication. Our window of opportunity is shorter than expected. She pressed the knife against my cheek. So, Margaret, let's skip the preliminaries. Where is file 2-73? File 273. The same numbers Mom's lamp was flashing. I'll ask one more time. The woman continued. Where is it? Mom's shoulders slumped in defeat. She mumbled something through her gag. Remove it. The woman ordered one of her men. He yanked the gag down. The safe, Mom croaked. Behind the north cabinet. Combination 2-73. The woman smiled. Was that so hard? She nodded to her men. They moved to the filing cabinets, pushing one aside to reveal a wall safe. But Mom wasn't looking at them. She was looking at her laptop, and in its black screen, I could see the reflection of what was happening behind me. Someone else was coming down the stairs. The safe clicked open. Empty. One of the men growled. The woman's knife pressed harder. Margaret, check again, Mom said calmly. Back panel. More shuffling. Then everything happened at once. Mom kicked over her desk lamp. The basement plunged into darkness except for the laptop's faint glow. Gunshots exploded from the stairs. Someone crashed into me, knocking my chair over. More shots. Screaming. The sound of bodies falling. Then silence. Clear, a man's voice called. Flashlights swept the basement. I glimpsed tactical gear. FBI vests. Agent Sullivan, you and your daughter okay? Someone was cutting my zip ties. Agent Sullivan? We're fine, Mom said, rubbing her freed wrists. Did you get them all? 4 in custody, including Kovac. The rest of her network is being rounded up now. I stared at my mother as someone helped me up. Mom? What? What's going on? She pulled me into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, Olive. I never wanted you involved in this. You're FBI. Retired. Mostly. Until they found a leak in the witness protection program. Someone was selling relocated witnesses new identities. The evidence was hidden in old courthouse files, but we needed time to track down the whole network. So you used yourself as bait? Used me? No, I tried to keep you out of it. But when they grabbed me this morning, I knew you'd come looking. I had to warn you somehow. The lamp, the numbers. She nodded. Emergency signal. File 273 was a flag for the FBI surveillance team. My legs felt weak. All these years, Sunday dinners, were real, she said firmly. Everything between us is real, Olive. I just couldn't tell you about the rest, about who I was before. Before what? Mom sighed. Before your father died. Before I left the bureau and tried to give you a normal life. FBI agents worked around us, bagging evidence, photographing the scene. One held up Mom's desk lamp, examining it. Standard issue signal device. Mom explained, I kept a few things, just in case. In case of what? In case the past caught up with us. She touched my cheek where the knife had pressed. I'm so sorry it finally did. I had 1,000 questions. About Dad. About who Mom really was. About every Sunday dinner conversation that suddenly felt like it might have had hidden meanings. But right now, one question mattered most. Is it over? Mom hesitated. This part is, but there's something else. Something in those courthouse files that's bigger than a witness protection leak. That's why Kovic was really here. What did you find? Not here, she whispered. Meet me tomorrow. The cafe where we used to get breakfast after church. I'll tell you everything. Promise. Promise. She hugged me again. Now go home to Katie and Michael. And Olive? Don't tell them about this. Not yet. I left Mom with the FBI team. My world tilted on its axis. As I drove home, her words echoed in my head. Something bigger. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. I barely slept that night. Michael noticed something was wrong, but I blamed it on worry over Mom having a bad migraine. The excuse the FBI had apparently called in to my house. Katie was just glad I'd saved her a piece of lasagna. The next morning, after dropping Katie at school, I headed to Morton's Cafe. The small breakfast spot held countless memories of post-church pancakes and hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. Now I wondered if Mom had chosen it for more than just their amazing blueberry waffles. She was already there, sitting in our usual corner booth. Wearing a turtleneck to hide what I assumed were bruises, she looked exhausted but alert. 2 coffee cups sat untouched on the table. You're not drinking yours, I said, sliding into the booth. Waiting for you. She managed a small smile. Some habits don't change. We'd always started our coffee together, a tiny ritual from my childhood. I lifted my cup. She mirrored me. But before the coffee reached her lips, she paused. Switch cups. What? Pleads Olive. Humor your paranoid mother. We exchanged cups. The weight of what this meant, that she didn't even trust a simple coffee order, made my stomach clench. Talk to me, Mom. What did you find in those files? She pulled something from her purse, a small USB drive. 3 months ago, I was digitizing old case files from the 1980s. Standard procedure. But some of the documents referenced a sealed federal case. Project Echo. What kind of case? That's just it. There was no record of it in the federal database. No mention anywhere except these scattered references, so I dug deeper. She slid the drive across the table. Project Echo wasn't a case. It was a program. They were experimenting with something they called guided genetic manipulation. In the 80s? That's not possible. The technology wasn't supposed to exist yet, but they had it, and they were using it on people, children, specifically. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of manipulation? They were trying to create perfect agents, people with enhanced abilities, faster reflexes, heightened senses, increased cognitive function. But it went wrong. Most of the subjects died. The ones who survived, she took a shaky breath. They terminated the program, and everyone involved. How do you know all this? Because your father was one of the investigators who discovered it. And because she reached for my hand. You were one of the survivors. The world tilted sideways. What? You were 3 years old. We found you during a raid on one of their facilities. You were the only child still alive. The adoption papers, your birth certificate, all fake. We created a whole new identity to protect you. I pulled my hand away. No, this isn't. I would remember. They had ways of erasing memories. And you were so young. Stop. I stood up so quickly my coffee spilled. This is insane. I'm your daughter. I have baby pictures. Carefully crafted ones. Olive, please sit down. There's more. More. More than telling me my whole life is a lie. They're starting again, she whispered urgently. Project Echo. That's what was in the courthouse files. They're recruiting new scientists, selecting new subjects. Children are already missing. I sank back into the booth, my legs weak. Why now, after all these years? Because they finally figured out what made you different. Why you survived when the others didn't. Your genetic structure, it's unique. They've been searching for someone like you ever since. The witness protection leak. That wasn't really why you were investigating. She shook her head. I was looking for proof of Project Echo. The leak was just cover. But Kovacs people, they work for the same organization that ran the original project. When they realized what I'd found, a sharp crack interrupted her. The window beside our booth exploded. Mom moved faster than I'd ever seen, tackling me to the floor as more shots shattered coffee cups and scattered terrified customers. Back door. She pulled me toward the kitchen. Now. We ran past stunned staff members, through the kitchen and out into the alley. Mom's sensible sedan was waiting, engine running. You knew they'd come, I accused as we peeled out of the alley. I hoped I was wrong. She handed me her phone. Call the number labeled insurance. Tell them Echo is active. I did. A gruff voice answered. Location? Morton's Cafe. Mom said loudly enough to be heard. 2 teams, heavy weapons. We're heading to fallback point C. Acknowledged. 10 minutes. She took a hard turn, tires squealing. The drive. Do you have it? I clutched the USB drive, my mind spinning with questions. Mom, if what you're saying is true, what am I? You're my daughter, she said firmly. Biology doesn't change that. Everything else, we'll figure it out. These abilities you mentioned, why haven't I ever noticed anything different about myself? The suppressants, your daily vitamins? They weren't just vitamins. My iron supplements that I'd taken for as long as I could remember. What happens if I stop taking them? Let's hope we don't have to find out. The original subjects. Their abilities were unstable, dangerous. A black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror. Then another. How did they find us so fast? I asked. They didn't. Mom's voice was grim. They were watching the whole time, waiting to see if I'd give you the drive. She swerved onto a service road, then into an industrial park. The SUVs followed. Fallback point C better be close, I said. About that. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a pill bottle. My vitamins. What are you doing? Giving you a choice. She held out the bottle. Take one, everything stays suppressed. But if they catch us, we'll need every advantage we can get. I stared at the bottle. You said the abilities were dangerous. They are, But right now, the people chasing us are more dangerous. The SUVs were gaining. Up ahead, more vehicles were moving to cut us off. Decide quickly, Mom said. I thought about everything I'd learned, about my life, my past, what I might really be, about the other children who died, and the new ones in danger. I rolled down the window and threw the bottle out. Mom nodded grimly. It'll take about an hour for the suppressants to wear off. Try to stay calm until then. Extreme emotions can trigger. The window behind me shattered. Something sharp stung my neck. Tranquilizer dart. Mom was shouting, the car swerving. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw was a third SUV pulling alongside us, and a familiar face behind the wheel. Dad. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of reality like broken glass. Dad's face, older, scarred, but unmistakably him, leaning over me. Mom's voice, shouting words I couldn't understand. The cold metal of a hospital bed. Needles, so many needles. When I finally came fully awake, I was in what looked like a medical room. Clean, sterile, with monitoring equipment beeping steadily beside me. My wrists and ankles were secured with padded restraints. The sedation was necessary. Dad's voice came from the doorway. The suppressants were breaking down. We couldn't risk a violent emergence. I turned my head. He stood there in a white lab coat, looking both familiar and like a stranger. A jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw. "You're dead," I managed to say. "The car accident. A necessary deception." He moved closer, checking my vitals. "Your mother was getting too close to the truth. We needed her to stop investigating." Project Echo never ended, Olivia. We just went deeper underground, continued the work quietly, learning from our mistakes. You were our greatest success and our biggest failure. Because I survived. Because we lost you. He sat on the edge of the bed. When your mother and her FBI team raided our facility, they didn't understand what they were interrupting. You weren't a victim we needed saving. You were on the verge of a breakthrough. Where's Mom? Safe. Angry, but safe. She's being debriefed in another wing. My head was pounding. Everything felt heightened. The lights too bright. Sounds too sharp. Smells too intense. The suppressants were wearing off. What did you do to me? When I was little. We made you better. He spoke with the passion of a true believer. Enhanced your natural abilities. Unlocked genetic potential that humans won't evolve naturally for thousands of years. You were going to be the first of a new generation. The other children died. Early attempts, imperfect processes. But your genetic structure was unique. You didn't just survive the treatments, you thrived. Until they took you. A wave of dizziness hit me. The monitor started beeping faster. "It's beginning," Dad said, excitement in his voice. "The emergence, after all these years." The restraints suddenly felt too tight. Every heartbeat was thunder in my ears. I could smell everything, antiseptic, coffee from 3 rooms away, the copper tang of blood somewhere below. "Try to stay calm," Dad instructed. "Let it happen naturally." What's happening to me? You're remembering. Not just with your mind. Your body is remembering what it was meant to be. He was right. Memories were flooding back, but not like normal ones. I remembered sensations. The feel of moving faster than should be possible. The clarity of seeing in perfect darkness. The power humming under my skin. I remembered the tests. The procedures. Dad's voice saying "good girl" as I performed impossible tasks. I remembered the other children. Their screams. "You're a monster," I whispered. "I'm a visionary, and you're my greatest creation." The door burst open. Mom stood there, holding a gun on Dad. Two men I recognized from the FBI team flanked her. "Step away from her, James," she ordered. Dad didn't move. "You're too late, Margaret. The suppressants are gone. She's remembering. She's rejecting it. Look at her vitals." The monitors were going crazy now. My heart felt like it would explode. "She just needs time to adjust. She needs it out of her system." Mom turned to one of the agents. "The counteragent. Now, you'll destroy decades of work." Dad protested. "I'm saving our daughter." Our daughter, not their subject, not an experiment. The choice crystallized in that moment, between what I was born to be and what I chose to be. I focused on the restraints, on the new/old strength flowing through me. They snapped like paper. Everyone froze. I stood shakily. The room spun, but I stayed upright. "Olive," Mom started. "I'm okay. I wasn't, but I would be. I remember everything now. What they did to us. What you did to save me. Your potential," Dad began, "is mine to choose." The words came out stronger than I felt. "Not yours." I could feel the changes accelerating, enhanced senses overwhelming me with input, muscles coiling with unnatural power. But I could also feel something else, something they hadn't programmed. Love. For my mom, who gave up everything to protect me. For Katie, who made me rainbow drawings. For Michael, who always saved me the last cookie. Things. Real things. "The counteragent," I said to Mom. "Give it to me." "Olivia, please," Dad begged. "Think of what you could become." "I already know what I am." Mom handed me the syringe. Dad lunged to stop me, faster than a normal man should move. But I was faster. I caught his arm easily, held him back with strength that should have been impossible. "I'm sorry, Dad, but this ends now." I injected the counteragent. Fire raced through my veins. I screamed as enhanced abilities I'd barely touched burned away. When the pain passed, I was on the floor. Mom held me while Dad was secured by the agents. The files, I remembered suddenly. The USB drive. Safe, Mom assured me. The FBI has everything. Project Echo is exposed. No more children will suffer. But the ones already taken, we'll find them, and we'll give them the same choice you had. I looked at Dad as they led him away. He stared back with a mixture of grief and fury. "He really loved me," I said, "in his way." "I know." Mom helped me up. "But love without respect isn't love at all." My legs felt weak. Normal weak, not superpowered weak. "What happens now?" "Now? We get you home to Katie and Michael. Order pizza. Try to figure out how to explain why Mom and daughter needed a spontaneous 2-day vacation. And the FBI will handle the rest. My reinstatement paperwork is already processing. Someone needs to oversee finding and helping the other children." I leaned on her as we walked out. Everything felt dulled after the heightened sensations of before, but also cleaner, simpler. "No more secrets?" I asked. "No more secrets," she promised. "Though maybe we keep the superpower part between us." Katie's science project was impressive, but I don't think she's ready for that level of biology lesson. I managed a laugh. It felt good, human. As we drove home, I thought about choices, about nature versus nurture, about the family you're born with versus the family you choose. I thought about the other children out there, the ones who would need help making their own choices. Mom? Those Sunday dinners, were you really just checking on me all those years, making sure I was still normal? She was quiet for a moment. At first, yes, but then they became the best part of my week. Just being your mom. Nothing more complicated than that. I reached for her hand. Same. We drove toward home, toward Katie and Michael and normal life. But I knew things would never be quite the same. Not with the truth out there. Not with more children to save. Not with the memory of what I could have been, and the knowledge of what I chose to be instead. Mom? Yes? Next Sunday dinner's at your place. 1 year later, the doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. Some habits really don't change. I'll get it, Katie called, racing to the door. Grandma. Mom entered with her usual Sunday casserole, but she wasn't alone. A small girl, maybe 7 years old, held her hand tightly. Everyone, Mom said, this is Lucy. She'll be joining us for dinner. I recognized that look in Lucy's eyes, the same wary alertness I'd seen in my own reflection after the suppressants wore off. Another child from Project Echo. Lucy, Mom continued, this is my daughter Olivia, her husband Michael, and their daughter Katie. Katie, now 14 and infinitely wiser in the ways of the world, immediately went into big sister mode. Want to see my new telescope? Dad got it for my birthday. Lucy glanced uncertainly at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. The two girls disappeared upstairs. Number 12? I asked quietly, helping Mom with her coat. Number 12, she confirmed. Her abilities started manifesting last week. The counteragent is ready, but she needs to choose for herself. Over the past year, Mom's FBI task force had located 15 children from Project Echo's new program. Some, like Lucy, had been adopted by project scientists. Others were kept in hidden facilities. Each rescue brought new challenges, new choices. Dad's trial had revealed the full scope of the program. He'd be in prison for the rest of his life, along with most of his colleagues. But the damage they'd done lived on in the children they'd altered. How's she handling it? I asked, watching Lucy and Katie through the dining room window. They were setting up the telescope on our back deck. Better than most, but she's scared. She needs to see that there's life after everything. That's why Mom brought the rescued children to our Sunday dinners, to show them normal family life was possible, that they had choices. Katie's good with them, Michael said, joining us. He'd taken the truth about Project Echo better than I'd expected. His only response had been to hug me and say, "You're still you." She is, Mom agreed. Must run in the family. Through the window, I watched Katie showing Lucy how to focus the telescope. Lucy's hand trembled slightly as she touched the lens, enhanced senses making every movement a challenge. The counteragent's ready whenever she decides, Mom said, but there's something else, something new. I recognized her tone. What is it? The task force found another facility, different from the others. They weren't creating enhanced children there. They were trying to copy existing abilities, transfer them from one subject to another. Like they tried with Dad, giving him some enhancements. More than that, they wanted to mass produce abilities, create an army. She touched my arm. They used your genetic samples from when you were young. The implications hit me. There are more. More of me. No. They couldn't replicate your specific mutations. But they created something else. Something potentially worse. How long until? Soon. We're planning the raid now. I wanted you to know first. Through the window, Lucy suddenly stumbled. Katie caught her arm, steadying her as another emergence tremor hit. I should help, I said. Olive. Mom's voice stopped me. Are you sure? Being around them, when they're going through it, brings it all back, I smiled. Every time. But they need to see someone who chose normal, who chose family, who chose love over power. I didn't add. We all knew. I joined the girls outside. Lucy was shaking, her enhanced senses overwhelming her. Too bright? I asked gently. Too loud? She nodded, eyes wide. You know? I do. Want to know a secret? If you focus on one thing, just one small thing, it helps. Like that star, right there. See it? She looked where I pointed. It's so clear. That's Polaris, the North Star. Sailors used it to find their way home. Lucy's trembling east as she focused. It's beautiful. It is. And you know what? It looks just as beautiful through normal eyes. Different, but still amazing. She turned to me. Did you choose normal? I did, but that was my choice. You'll make your own, when you're ready. Does it hurt? Going back? A little, but then it feels peaceful. Inside, Mom was setting the table. Michael was pouring drinks. Katie was chattering about constellations. Normal Sunday dinner things. Lucy watched them too, like a real family. It is real, all of it, even the complicated parts. She squeezed my hand with slightly too strong fingers. Can we look at more stars first, before I decide? Of course, take all the time you need. We stayed out there until Mom called us in for dinner. Lucy sat between Katie and me, her tremors gradually calming as normal conversation flowed around her. I caught Mom's eye across the table. She nodded slightly, another child finding her way home. Later, there would be more rescues, more facilities to shut down, more choices to face. But right now, there was just Sunday dinner, family, love, and sometimes that's the most powerful choice of all.